project, and she's going to tell us about the significance of the human microbiome and also about the training program or the short course which is which, which is being offered to the students, which will be offered to the students. And I think after listening to her, it will be open for discussion and clarifying all the doubts by the student participants as well as the faculty. So we can start with you, Dr. Kulkarni.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining. So I'm just going to start. I'll just remove the spotlight for now. So thank you so much for joining. There are two parts of this session. Firstly, there's an introduction about the human microbiome. What is it? Why do we need to know about it? And what are the recent findings? Why is it so important? And it is not a part of the curriculum in majority of the colleges, universities in India. What are we missing by not having that in the curriculum? Those are some of the things that I'm going to address. How does it apply to real life? This is not something that is required just for the career. And the second part will focus on what you can do with the kind of knowledge that we are offering about the human microbiome. What can you do with it? What are the career options in this field? What is it that you can do that is very different from the options that you have right now when you are studying microbiology? So do let me know if you can see my screen. I'll just share. So is the screen visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. So I would, if everyone could please mute their mics, it would be a lot better for everybody else. So I'm just going to start by a brief introduction about our microbiome, which is the human microbiome. A little bit about me before that. So this is our team. If everyone could please mute their mics.
Rashmi, I will mute everyone and I will unmute you.
Yes, that will be great. Yes. So I'm just going to give a brief about our team. That's me. I have a PhD in molecular genetics and a master's in microbiology. So this is my team of other co-founders. There are three of us. Sujata Gokhale has a master's in information technology, bachelor's in computer systems engineering. And Renuka Kelkar, who is also here with us. She's a Google developer, Flutter expert in Flutter, and she has a bachelor's in computer science. The interesting thing is the diverse background that our team has. So when I tell you what we are doing and what you can do in this field, it will become even more apparent. So today I'm going to introduce this concept of microbiome, which we call our superhero at Arna Gen Next. And if you have not heard about it yet, you will find out why we call it our superhero. So these are some of the things that we are going to address in today's presentation. What does it mean to be human? Are we completely human? Do we really understand who we are? How can we be our best selves when we say that we are human? Can we have personalized medicine to treat chronic diseases because they are on the rise? So if we look at all of these aspects, let us see who we really are. When we think of us as human beings, we think we are the most superior species on this planet. And we have managed to break it down, or modern medicine in the past 150 years have broken down the human body into just visible organs. So when we are talking about these visible organs, it's either the heart or the lungs or whatever it is. But traditionally, it was a more holistic view of what the body was, including the external environment, including the mind. That's not what we do right now. But who are we really? We are a combination of trillions of germs with trillions of our own cells. So if we have 40 trillion cells, we also have nearly an equal, if not more, number of microbial cells in our body. This is what makes us completely human. This collection of the microbiome, which is our invisible organ, along with our visible organs, makes us completely human. So if we really think about it, with these microbes on our body, on and inside our bodies, we are not 100% human. Or whatever we call human is a collection of our cells and microbial cells. If we think of DNA, now everybody is familiar with what DNA is and what genes are. If we think of how many genes the microbiome offers, we are only 1% human. So let's look closely at that. If we look at the microbes in our lives, there is at least an equal number of microbes in our body as there are cells in our body. There are more than 10,000 different species of microorganisms that already have been identified. There will be a lot more, but we already know about these that are living in the human body. Now, coming to the genes, there are at least 100 times more unique genes. I'm not talking about the total genes, unique genes that the microbiome has to offer. And they are doing something, they're functioning in our bodies. So just think about that. Our genes are only 1%, the microbial genes are 100 times more than ours. So when we think of differences in different individuals, we know that we are very different from each other. We look different, we make different decisions, and there are so many other differences. But we cannot attribute all of that to our genetics because we are 99.99% identical to each other. Could it be our microbiome that's making us different? Is that possible? So when we say microbiome, it is the collection of all of these microorganisms or their genetic material that is present in our body. Now, I have just highlighted a few of the organs. These are examples. We have an oral microbiome. We have a lung microbiome. We have a gut microbiome. We have a skin microbiome. And there are microbiomes in different organs. It's like cities that are present in different places. So if we think of the composition of the microbiome, the microbiome has all kinds of microbes that you know of: bacteria, archaea, viruses, fungi, protozoa. If I ask you, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when I say bacteria? I'm sure you will say that, oh, bacterial infections, antibiotics, antibiotic resistance. Viruses remind us of the COVID-19 pandemic. Fungi remind us of dandruff, psoriasis, and smelly feet. How about protozoa? Protozoa reminds us of malaria, of amoebic diarrhea. Why do we only know about these infectious organisms when trillions of them are present in our body and they are not causing infections? They are actually helping us. That is because if you think of what makes the news or the headlines, it is the criminals, or it's mostly something sensational that gets published. People always hear about it. Nobody talks about the 8 billion people that are living on Earth, going about their daily duties. So let us look at this collection of the genetic material or our microbiome. What does it actually do? Now, different parts of our body have a distinct microbiome. Each body part has its own microbiome because, as you know, some sites are dry, some are moist, some are oily. So just like there are different microbiomes in different organs, the microbiomes also change according to our age. There are age-dependent changes. In an infant, the microbiome is just establishing. The concentration of microbes is quite low. And then when a baby or a toddler reaches the year of 3 years, it starts becoming more and more stable. During adulthood, it is the richest, most diverse microbiome, which has the most functions. And in elderly, again, it goes down. It starts looking quite similar to infancy, where the microbiome diversity is quite low. So if we think of all of these microbiomes, and we start getting, or the first gift that a mother can give her baby is her microbiome. That is the first time we get our first dose of the microbiome. So if we think of all of these, let us look at the gut microbiome for an example, because that forms majority of the germs that we have or the microbes that we have. Our gut contains 1.5 to 2 kilograms of microorganisms. So we can call it our invisible organ. It has a lot of functions. I can go on for hours if we talk about the functions that just the gut microbiome does. Because if you think of it, it's 100 times more genes than we have. So these are just a few examples. They help us in nervous system modification. They help us digest our food. Example, fiber. They help us in pathogen resistance against epithelial injury. They're protecting us against injury. They're helping us with bone mass density. They promote fat storage. They promote angiogenesis, synthesis of many of the vitamins and amino acids in our body, like majority of the B vitamins, half of the vitamin K. All of these are very important, right? So they are made by the gut microbiome. Immune system stimulation, the training of the immune system that happens is majority in the gut. So if you are familiar with the GOT or the gut associated lymphoid system, you will know that 70% is in our gut. That's where the training is happening. It also helps in metabolism of the drugs that we are taking. So R&D is some very important functions. If we look at a cross section of the large intestine where majority of the gut microbiome is, so these are intestinal cells. You can notice it's a single layer of cells. And in a baby, there's nothing on it. It's mostly sterile. But after a baby is born, this is the first dose the baby receives. And then germs or microbes start colonizing the intestine. This is also the time when the immune system is developing. This is where the training of the immune system happens. So don't you think we need good microbes for that training to happen, for everything to function properly, for digestion to happen properly? So this is something that is very, very important. Just some fun facts. What are the dirtiest surfaces inside our homes? Are these things that we think about cleaning? Our cell phones, kitchen sinks, bags. The coffee pot has a lot of fungal growth. Still, most people drink coffee from it. Toothbrushes are extremely dirty, yet we brush our teeth with them. Remotes, pet bowls. A cutting board that is used to cut meat has about 200 times more fecal bacteria than a toilet seat. It is actually dirtier than a toilet seat. And the dirtiest things in our kitchen, the kitchen knob, the dirtiest thing is the kitchen sponge, and we use it to clean our dishes. So while we go about doing all of these, we go to the other extreme where we are cleaning things that don't require cleaning or sterilizing. We use disinfectant sprays, antimicrobial agents to clean tables, chairs, inanimate objects. A lot of people even have an OCD about it. And antibiotic prescription is probably at an all-time high. The antibiotics we are using now are a lot stronger than what was used 2 decades ago. So what do antibiotics do? People are taking antibiotics for not just bacterial infections, but viral, fungal, protozoal, and for allergies on their own because they are available over the counter and doctors overprescribe it. So what do you think it does to the bacteria in our gut microbiome? Because bacteria make up at least 95% of our microbiome. Antibacterial hand wash. Which hand wash do you use? Please type in the comments in the chat box. What is the hand wash that you use? And what is the reason for choosing that hand wash? If it is antibacterial, do we work or live in a hospital to have to use an antibacterial hand wash? 20 seconds of plain wash with plain soap is enough to remove dirt. Antibacterial body washes. There are even antibacterial clothes these days. Antimicrobial toothpaste. So when we think of an oral microbiome, we need an oral microbiome in order to keep our oral cavity and the entire body very healthy. And yet we are using toothpaste that have, majority of them have antibacterial agents, antimicrobial wipes, hand sanitizers. Children use hand sanitizers instead of washing their hands. They are mandated to carry hand sanitizers with their lunch boxes in schools because they are not given time to wash their hands. And what does it do to the skin microbiome? Antibacterial or antimicrobial floor cleaners. Think about the floor cleaner you use in your home. So when we are going about doing all of these things all day long, the water that we drink is sterile. It's either RO water or UV water. The food is sterile. What do you think is happening to the microbiome? What do you think is happening to the sources of our microbiome? Where can we get it from? So if we compare the rural versus the urban lifestyle, can you see the difference? This is the ancestral way of living, completely environment friendly, completely in nature, constantly exposed to all of the wonderful microbes that we need for a diverse microbiome. And yet we are here indoors working on our digital devices all day long. And everything is pretty much sterilized all the time, over hygienic conditions. So what do you think happens to the microbiome? What are the long-term consequences of what we saw during COVID? Masking, social distancing, isolating ourselves indoor. hand sanitizers, wipes, and disinfectant sprays. We had such an outbreak of so many other diseases, including monkeypox, RSV, and hepatitis. There were so many different outbreaks. Why do you think that happened? Because the immune system was not updated at all during COVID. Those diseases are already there. They are there in the environment. Those viruses, bacteria, all those organisms are there, but the immune system is not updated. So if we think of this, just looking at this cartoon, here's the immune system. It's getting trained from these microbes here. The immune system is getting trained. And now when we have pathogens that are coming, they're saying that, oh, I think we'll struggle to set up a colony here because, the training is going on very, very well. But in case this training does not happen, then infections are very easy. And then what do? Take antibiotics. The antibiotics don't just kill these, they also kill these microbes. So when this training does not happen, the next time, how easy will it be for an infection to set in? So this is where all of these infectious diseases are coming from, because the immune system just does not get updated. We need that to be updated all the time. Isn't that something that you're learning in immunology? That immune system training needs to happen. And yet the choices of people who are studying medicine, who are studying microbiology, are still the same, just like everybody else, watching commercials, using all of these disinfectants and antimicrobial things. Why are we doing that? So how do we improve our immunity? Can we improve it this way or this way? What are children doing these days? Are they playing outdoors or are they on their digital devices, on their tablets? So if we think about all of these factors in our lifestyle, they are shaping our microbiome. They're making our microbiome extremely poor. One of them is excessive hygiene. There is a lot of stress if we think of our lifestyle. Even children have a lot of stress these days. Exercise or lack of it, or sedentary lifestyle. Medications that we are taking. Many of the medications that are not labeled as antibiotics are also antimicrobial. The environment that we live in, the environmental toxins, pollutants, and of course, our non-nutritious diet. These are the factors that shape our environment. These are some of them. And when we have all of them in our life, which is the case for most people, they're going to add up. When these add up, they can cause a lot of different infections and majority of the chronic diseases, even several forms of cancer. So we just recently did a podcast where we have outlined the reasons why 90% of cancers are actually preventable. Only less than 10% are genetic. So knowing what we know so far, how can we be our best selves? What can we do with this information? If we think about the microbiome, now probably that one gene is equal to one function. So if we have very few types of microorganisms and very few in number, they just don't have the number of genes that we need for all of these functions in our body that they are supposed to help us with. So our invisible organ is incomplete here. So if I liken this to the city of Delhi, for example, now the city of Delhi needs to be built. There are a very few people here. And they are saying that, oh, I'll either be an engineer or a doctor. So what do you think will happen to this city? Will it be built properly? Who is going to grow the food? Who is going to build the city? Who is going to do all of the other jobs? Who is going to clean up when there aren't enough people and they are not equipped to carry out the functions in this city? So this is what is happening in most people. But the secret to a healthy microbiome is to have a high number of good microorganisms that are beneficial and a good variety of them. So when we have this microbiome diversity, where we have the numbers and the diversity or different types, then they have enough number of genes to fulfill all of the functions. So this is like a city where there are many people available and they are fulfilling different kinds of professions. Now there's a farmer, there's a grocer, there's a teacher, there's a pilot, there's a taxi driver, and of course, doctors, engineers. So just think about this, how beautiful the city will be and how well-oiled it will be. It will be functioning like a well-oiled machine. It is exactly the same that is happening to our body. that our microbiome is just incomplete. It cannot perform all of the functions. So if you think of any other organ, like our heart, what would happen if the heart was incomplete? Would it function? What would happen if the liver was incomplete? Can we even dream about it? Can we think about the consequences, how serious they would be? Yet we have incomplete microbiomes. So when we have a high microbiome diversity, which is very healthy, it leads to good immunity because the immune system is trained all the time. It leads to good health because we are getting nutrition from the food that we eat. All the vitamins, minerals, even absorption of minerals is done by the gut microbiome. So people who have all of these mineral deficiencies can take supplements all they want, but if they don't have the microbes to help them absorb the minerals, they are not going to increase the mineral levels. So this is what is happening in a normal situation. This is what we have. Majority of us have a low microbiome diversity that leads to poor immunity. That's why majority of people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s already have at least one chronic disease, if not more. So let us go back to the hygiene hypothesis. When we are going and doing all of these things, what is it? Are these preventable? Can we stop doing these? Can we live without these? Can we bring back the sources of our microbiome? Can we live a lifestyle that is more environment friendly, that is more close to nature? So when we do that, again, coming back to a high microbiome and a low microbiome diversity, this is a cross section of the intestine here, a cartoon representation. Sorry about that. So these are again intestinal cells, and these are the villi on top. There's a very nice layer of mucus on this in a normal case. And there's a nice layer of the microbiome on top in the gut. What happens here is these microbes secrete short chain fatty acids and other metabolites, which help keep the tight junctions tight. Nothing is leaking inside. There is good immunity. There is a healthy state. But when we don't have the microorganisms, it is a low microbiome diversity. There are even pathogens in it, very few good microorganisms. So the tight junctions are not tight because the short chain fatty acids are not made, other metabolites are not made. The mucus layer is eaten up by these pathogens. So now what happens is the gut is not at all protected. There are gaps in the intestine. This is called leaky gut. Again, this is a prevalent condition in many, many, many people. Most likely we all have it. And when there is leaky gut, there's leakage of pathogens in the bloodstream. There's leakage of toxic waste products, toxic metabolites, undigested food. All of these are going to the bloodstream. All of these are causing inflammation in our body. All of these are causing chronic diseases, several forms of cancer. So in a healthy state, where we have good immunity, there are vitamins and minerals that are made. There's metabolism that the microbiome is helping with. And if the microbiome is not healthy, it leads to inflammation. It causes gut inflammation, leaky gut, and majority of the chronic diseases. If the inflammation reaches the pancreas, it causes diabetes. If it reaches the pancreas first, if it reaches the liver, it causes liver disease. If it reaches the brain, it causes cognitive dysfunction. So it causes so many different types of chronic diseases. It is possible to reverse majority of the diseases by recovering the gut microbiome. So that's the good news, that when we know about this, we can reverse, we can improve our health by knowing what the microorganisms do. So it's a simple equation. We have a bad gut microbiome. It leads to increased inflammation and it leads to poor quality of overall life, be it physical, mental, or emotional. So when we talk about a microbiome disturbance or dysbiosis, so a healthy state is called eubiosis. When there is dysbiosis, it is correlated with all kinds of chronic diseases. You can name any chronic disease and it will be linked to a disturbance in the microbiome. Even cancers, diabetes, allergies, asthma, heart disease, psychiatric diseases, autoimmune diseases. So the interesting thing here is that a lot of research has shown that these non-communicable diseases that are not infections have been increasing. Like India is now very close to becoming the diabetes capital of the world and the cancer capital of the world. So these non-communicable diseases have been increasing in industrialized and industrializing nations because of so much over hygiene and over sterile environment, and of course processed foods. Now if we think of what microorganisms do microbes really cause disease? Was I able to change your mind on it? Our microbiome, which is like trillions of microorganisms, they have a direct influence on whether we get infections and whether we have chronic diseases. They have a direct influence on communicable as well as non-communicable diseases. So do microorganisms cause disease, or do they help us prevent all kinds of diseases? It is a question you need to answer for yourself. So just for a break in between, I want as many followers. This is something that I thought about. Oh, I want as many followers as there are microorganisms in my microbiome. But wait, there aren't that many humans on Earth. We are only 8 billion, and there are trillions of microorganisms in each microbiome. So that's not even possible. We have co-evolved with our microbiome. They are a lot more than us. So if we think of what they do, now I was just talking about the physical aspect. Do they also influence our mental health? So when we have something called gut feelings, we think that our gut feelings seem to be different from what our mind or heart are saying. These gut feelings are real. These are the gut microbes that are guiding the working of our mind. 90% of our peripheral nervous system is in our digestive tract. So the second brain, or our gut, the gut microbiome, is also called our second brain because this influences our mood, the emotions that we have. A big part of it is influenced by the nerves in our gut. The butterflies in our stomach, these are neurotransmitters made by the germs. So looking at this picture, do you think there's anything weird about it? The mouse is sitting on the cat's head. Shouldn't it be scared of the cat? So this mouse is actually infected with toxoplasma. And if you have studied toxoplasma, the beauty of it is it has evolved in a way where it changes the behavior. Once it infects these mice or rats, it makes them fearless to cats. They're actually attracted to the smell of cat urine. They go and seek cats. When cats eat them, the life cycle of toxoplasma is completed in the cat. This is how it has evolved. So why am I giving this example? Because just one type of microorganism is able to change the decisions of these mice or rats that are infected. Just think about it, what trillions of microorganisms in our gut are doing with the metabolites they are producing, with the neurotransmitters they are making. They are our decisions ours? Are our choices ours? Are our cravings our own? Or are the germs or the microorganisms dictating everything that we do? So there's this term called a psychobiome. Just like we say microbiome, this is the collection of microorganisms that are associated with psychiatric disorders because the neurotransmitters they are making in the gut through the gut-brain axis are directly impacting the mood or the behavior of people suffering from any of these. It can be as mild as looking at mood swings, cognition impairment, anxiety, depression, OCD, to very serious ones like ASD, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's disease. So it is already shown, a lot of research has shown that very low levels of dopamine or a neurotransmitter made by the gut microbiome is actually linked to an increased risk of Parkinson's disease. So when we think about this gut microbiome axis, our mood and whatever we are feeling, even the psychiatric or the neurodegenerative disorders, are very greatly dependent on what happens in our gut, the health of our gut microbiome. If we take any disease or any different condition, not just disease, if we even look at lean versus obese, there are specific signatures of the gut microbiome that are associated with people who are lean or people who are obese. The gut microbiome is different. It is a lot balanced in non-obese individuals. It is a dysbiotic microbiome in obese individuals. How do we know about this? So experiments were done on deceased or normal individuals, the fecal matter was taken. So this technique has been used in many thousands of studies where fecal matter was taken from individuals, either normal or a control group, and any disease. This was transplanted in germ-free mice, in the intestines or the gut of germ-free mice. And guess what they saw? So, for example, if the fecal matter from a diabetic individual was taken, the mice started showing symptoms of diabetes. If the fecal matter was taken from a patient suffering from Alzheimer's disease, the germ-free mice started showing Alzheimer-like symptoms. If it was taken from autism, they started showing autism-like symptoms. Just a transfer of the gut microbiome. How serious is that? So this is how majority of the studies were done. So this technique called a fecal microbiome transplant, where it is taken from an individual or healthy individual and transplanted to a donor who is deceased, who needs good microbes to be populated, is something that is gaining slight popularity. There are a lot of clinical trials happening to try and cure diseases. So this is a very good example. There's a lot of research happening in this field. If we think of what happens in cancers, there are people with the same kind of cancer who respond very differently to the same chemotherapy. Their gut microbiome is modulating, or it is dictating how they respond to chemotherapy. So what is happening in these non-responders? Scientists have taken the fecal matter from responders and transplanted it to non-responders. And guess what they see after that? These people start responding to chemotherapy because their gut microbiome is now better equipped. So there are some studies that are showing this kind of an effect. It is still not mainstream. There's a lot of research going on in this. So now if we look at all of these things that are playing a role in our microbiome being extremely poor, increasing the risk of all of our chronic diseases and infections and affecting our mental health, don't you think we need to resolve all of these? Can we do something about our diet, about our environment, about our sedentary lifestyle, the stress that we have, the excessive hygiene? And can we take medications only when necessary? So the kind of life that we live right now, people are talking about just calories. We get calories even by burning trash. The kind of garbage that we put in our lives in terms of the junk food that we eat, in the content that we watch, be it Netflix or whatever. So there is nothing like mindless watching. Our subconscious brain absorbs everything. The kind of garbage that goes in is the exact output that we have physically, mentally, emotionally. So can we change that? What can we do to increase our microbiome diversity? What are the simple things that we can do? As I said before, if our lifestyle is very close to nature, it improves the microbiome diversity immensely. It reduces our stress a lot. So any kind of nature related activity is amazing for the microbiome because it introduces live microbes in our body. Exposure to pets is again amazing for the microbiome. Children who grow up with dogs in their household have a much lower risk of all kinds of diseases, allergies, by having a good microbiome. Even farm animals are great. Hygiene, the hygiene hypothesis. Now, these are our old friends. The microbes in our lives are actually our friends. So the hygiene hypothesis says that we need just a clean, not a sterile life or a sterile home for more microbiome diversity. Social relationships. When we are social, when we meet other people, we are exchanging microbes all the time. So it is amazing for our microbiome. Eating food that is grown locally, that is seasonal. So how do you choose your food? Is this what you do? How do you shop like this? Or do you shop in supermarkets where food is coming from far off places? What is the problem with this? Or do you buy from a local vendor? If you buy food that is grown locally, it is so suitable for that local area that it does not need excessive pesticides and fertilizers. The other benefit is it grows in the same season as your body is experiencing. It is in the same season as your microbiome. The microbiome changes according to seasons. So it is very well equipped to help you digest your food. But when we eat food that is exotic, that is coming from different states or different nations, it just it does not have the same effect on our body. We cannot get the right kind of nutrition from these kinds of food. So it is very important to eat local and seasonal food. Which source do you choose? Do you ask the right questions? If it's a local vendor, we can even visit the farm and figure out what they are using in their farms. Seasonal is also very, very important, because if you look at mangoes or any other fruits, they are available even when they are not seasonal. Even when it is winter, we still see mangoes. But how are they growing? They're forced to grow in that season by either genetic modification or by excessive use of fertilizers and pesticides. Is this going to give you the right kind of nutrition? So consume food only when it is in season. That's going to give us a very amazing diversity. If we go back to our traditional way of eating, it has all of the diverse things that we need. Fermented foods, it has different millets, different carbohydrates, different sources of proteins, the rainbow diet, or the 5 color groups of fruits and vegetables. It is a very, very balanced thali, whichever region of India you might look at. So how much diversity do we have on our plate? Are we eating one pot meals that are high in carbs, or are the meals balanced? Probiotics are again amazing for our microbiome. What are probiotics? Now, here I've shown idli and dhokla, so idli, dosa, and whatever. If we ask anybody, what are the fermented foods that you are eating? This is something that I very, very commonly hear. Are these the real probiotic foods that you would want to eat? Yes, they are very nutritious. Yes, they are fermented, but they are not probiotic foods because they were cooked after the process of fermentation. All the live germs or the microbes are dead. But if we talk about yogurt or kanji or ambil or pickles, they are going to provide us with live microorganisms. They pre-digest our food and they know how to digest the food that we are going to eat. So they are a lot beneficial. Include fermented foods in your regular diet. So if we think about all of these very basic things, it is high time that we recognize the microbiome, we respect our microbiome, because a very, very high percentage of our metabolic activity, 100 times more than our own genes, is derived from this microbiome. We are very much dependent on them for our physical, mental, and emotional health. They have been around a lot longer on this earth. They know what to do better than we do. So we definitely should know about them, because the future of treatment is coming very rapidly at us, and it involves the microbiome. This is the sad part, that this is not a part of the curriculum, and yet personalized medicine is something that is coming to us very, very fast from other countries. If we think about this, they are the 99%. We should respect the microbiome. Thank you so much for this first part of the session, where this was about the introduction itself. If you have any questions for this part, please let me know. After that, I'll proceed to the career options or what can be done in this field. So are there any questions for this part? So I just see that only one person has posted which hand soap she's using. I want everybody to post what they use. One of the big reasons for our choices are not from what we are studying. So if you think of what you are studying in immunology and the kind of exposure that everybody needs to the right kind of microbes, and what we see on TV, if you see a commercial of an antimicrobial agent that, oh, this hand soap, like the Lifebuoy commercial, for example, oh, tera sabun stupid hai kya? And then people think that, oh, maybe that is correct and I need to use an antibacterial soap. And then we go back to use an antibacterial soap. So what is dictating your choices? Is it your education, or are the commercials dictating your choices? That is something that everybody needs to really reflect on. Because if students of microbiology, if doctors who are studying about microbiology are selecting things based on commercials and not their education, it's a problem. Yes, Dr. Pooja.
Hello, ma'am. It was a very insightful session. So I have a question just from the very first line that you in the starting you said that we are not human, just only one person. So I was curious about like why did you use that line? Ki we are not humans and only one person. So what defines actually being human? Matlab being like what we were earlier, like when we are having like rural lifestyle and eating fresh vegetables. On only that time we were human, or we are changing
No, the
to something
reason
now.
I said that, that's a very good question. So I gave the reason also initially. I don't know if you missed it, but the reason why we are not human, or I call it 1% human, is because the genetic material of all of the functions. So if we think about one gene, one function hypothesis, that when we are talking about one gene, it has one kind of function. So if we think about our 22,000 genes in humans, so you might be aware that there are about 22,000 genes in any human being. If we think about those 22,000 genes imparting 22,000 functions, for example, this is a very simplistic view of it. There are at least 100 times more unique genes that are contributed by our microbiome, that are present in our body, that are probably functioning in our body. So if you think of these 100 times more genes, which are not ours and they're functioning. So the biochemical pathways that we have in our biochemistry books, if you actually look at the enzymes in the biochemistry pathways, those enzymes, a majority of those enzymes are not made by us. If you look at the pathway of vitamin B synthesis, in many of the B vitamin pathways, many of the enzymes come from the microbiome. They do not come from our genetic material.
Okay.
And we don't learn biochemistry that way. That is the very sad part. Biochemistry never tells us where these enzymes are coming from.
Okay, ma'am. So you are saying
this
that
is why I'm saying that the genetic material that we are contributing to functions that are happening in our body is only 1%.
okay, so you mean that we are human? We are human just because we are functioning as a human,
yes.
just because of we have these microorganisms.
Yes. So we are actually symbionts.
Okay.
We are not just human cells. We are symbionts. It's a combination of trillions of microorganisms. And we have done a very nice podcast last week
Yes,
on
ma'am.
how cognitive functions have. So the brain size has increased 3 times because humans started consuming probiotics, fermented foods.
Yes, ma'am. I saw your podcast also, and even I was reading this topic about gut-brain axis from last few months with some of my students. So I was totally inquisitive about like it is just emerging as a totally whole organ system in our body. So might be considered as a complete organ, not now, but in future years maybe.
It is considered. So if we think about the personalized medicine aspect that I was talking about in the US or in Australia, so it is considered as our invisible organ. That is the term that many scientists have given. So there are some questions. You can unmute yourself and ask the questions. So
okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
About, thank you so much. There's something about we can work to cure deadly diseases like cancer. Yes, with FMT. There are problems with fecal microbiome transplant because there might be pathogens that are not identified and they might be transferred to the donor. So that is why it's not something mainstream right now, but it is definitely something in clinical trials. If you think of how much people from cancer are suffering, and especially those who are not responding to chemotherapy, FMT is definitely a very good option. It does not mean that it is absolutely going to work, but it has shown promising results for many diseases. So definitely it's a technique that right now we don't know which of the microorganisms are responsible for that particular metabolism of chemotherapy. So as the research progresses and those microorganisms are identified, then fecal microbiome transplant will not be needed. It will be specific strains that will be transplanted, just like we would take a probiotic pill. So for hand washing, definitely it's a much better idea. At least I have been following that. Plain soap for 20 seconds. Nothing fancy, no antibacterial. That is enough. So if we go back to chemistry, just those micelles that are formed or the small bubbles, they are enough to remove dirt. We don't want to remove the microbiome because the skin microbiome actually helps us to keep the skin intact. Without our microbiome, even our skin cannot be intact. Think about how many children are suffering from eczema who do not have a complete intact skin barrier. So do you have any more questions? We can always come back to this topic. Do let me know.
Dr. Kulkarni, how
Yes.
effective are these oral probiotic pills, which doctors often prescribe while we are on antibiotic therapy?
Okay,
Or you know,
that's a very good question. I am glad you brought it up. So somebody recently asked me about enterogermin. I'm going to talk about it because personally I have a very different opinion about it. Whenever we go to any doctor, they have recently started giving probiotics, especially when they give antibiotics or if children are getting very frequent infections. They prescribe something called enterogermina. And if it is not enterogermina, it might be some strain of lactobacillus. Firstly, these are not very regulated. If you are buying it from a pharmaceutical company, they might be slightly more regulated. But just one strain of this probiotic is not going to help improve the microbiome diversity that much. Fermented foods are a lot better than just taking probiotic pills. And coming to enterogermina, so my kids were also prescribed, the doctors prescribed enterogermina for my children. When I looked at what it contains, the strains of bacteria that this particular probiotic had were made antibiotic resistant. They were resistant to many different antibiotics. I would be very scared of taking something that has antibiotic resistant genes artificially introduced. Because if you have studied how antibiotic resistance actually transfers from one bacterial strain to another, how easy it is, would you take something like that? Would you want any antibiotic resistant strains to live in your intestine? So that is something, without reading labels, there's absolutely no way I think we should take these probiotics.
I hold same opinion about Yakult also.
Yakult
That
also,
also
the problem with
contains
that
one
is
strain.
there is only one strain. You don't know how many are there in it. You would rather eat yogurt than that because it also contains sugar. Why would you drink something with sugar when you can have it's not healthy at all? Just because it comes in this very convenient bottles that can be carried easily, and just because celebrities are endorsing it, does not make it healthy. So that is my question to everybody. What is dictating your choices in life? Is it your education? Is it common sense? Is it what you have seen in ancestral practices? Is it what your parents and grandparents did? Or is it commercials and social media influencers? What is dictating your choices? And you are going to be the decision makers in this field. So just think about the importance of your choices, your decisions. If there are no more questions on this part, I will share the second half of this, which is about what we can do, why this matters. You know why this is important, but what can we do with it? When we learn about the microbiome, what can we do about it? So it opens up very, very different opportunities for us. It opens up a totally different world. The reason why I can say this very confidently is because after I did my master's in microbiology, my life has been completely microbiome friendly. That was the takeaway for me. That I thought that, okay, if the immune system needs training all the time, if it is not trained, it is going to do something. For people who have an OCD of excessive cleanliness, they will definitely have autoimmune diseases, or they will have something else that and then when I went about doing research in cancer for many, many years, at the end of my stint in research, that was for about 15 years, I was working on a mouse model. So this mouse model was actually a cancer mouse model. But the interesting thing about it is it also had metabolic syndrome. It had diabetes, it had obesity, it had lung cancer. That mouse had changes in the bone marrow, it had fatty liver, it had kidney disease, it had everything possible. So that is when I started focusing on the root cause of disease instead of focusing on the treatment. So I thought, why not fix the microbiome instead? Why not prevent all of this? That's when I started focusing on this. And if we look at why it matters, let us think of our life. Now we are living longer if we think of our parents or grandparents, because infections were a lot more common at that time. The medicines were not available, antibiotics were not that common. So we are living longer. But are we aging healthy? How many people in their 30s, 40s, 50s already have pre-diabetes, already have plantar fasciitis, already have some kind of chronic diseases, non-communicable diseases? They account for 50% of the disease burden and 60% of all deaths in India. And these are all preventable. And these are yet on the rise right now. It is not just in India, it is worldwide that non-communicable diseases are increasing. So the microbiome is vital to our overall health. It helps improve physical, emotional, and mental well-being. So we need the right combination of microorganisms that are beneficial for us, that have the genes, that have the functions that our body requires, that help us in all of these. Otherwise, we are going to get all of these chronic diseases. So if we think of what we can do with the knowledge that we have, there is personalized medicine. Now, if you go to a doctor, you are going to get a prescription. For example, if there's heart disease, the doctor is going to prescribe something to maintain that heart disease. For people who have diabetes, they will be given medications to maintain their diabetes. There is nothing that will cure diabetes. So if we think of what we can do with the microbiome, we can go back and fix it. In fact, we are doing it in our company. We have a wellness program where we fix the microbiome. We help people reverse chronic diseases just by improving gut health. This is disease agnostic. If we fix the microbiome, it is going to fix everything in life, improving mood, improving our well-being, improving our performance at work, our academic performance, our reducing our risk of all kinds of diseases. So if we look at the studies that are done on the microbiome, dysbiosis or an imbalance in the microbiome has been linked to all kinds of diseases, including obesity, diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease. We work with doctors who tell us that, oh, inflammatory bowel disease is something that we just don't know how to treat. We can only manage it. But we are helping them treat diseases like this by fixing the microbiome. Even mental health issues, conditions like anxiety and depression. If we understand the composition of the microbiome, if we understand what each of these are doing, an individual's microbiome, then healthcare professionals can understand what they can do to fix it. And personalized medicine is coming at us very fast because there's a lot of research being done in countries like the United States, many places in Europe, UK, Australia, even Singapore, and they are using the power of the microbiome for personalized medicine. So whatever doctors are saying till now that, oh, diseases cannot be cured, they can only be managed, is not true. If we use the power of the microbiome, they can be cured. And how can we do this? By unlocking the microbial blueprint. Microbiome analysis can be done. This can be done by using different microbiomes, either the oral microbiome just by a salivary sampling, fecal microbiome or the gut microbiome by using only a stool sample. There's sequencing that can be done, bioinformatics. So there are so many different things you can learn in this, how to analyze the microbiome, how to do the sequencing, and how to analyze the entire sequence. If we look at diagnostics, the diseases themselves, if you talk about autism spectrum disease, for example, there are so many different varieties of symptoms in people who have autism spectrum diseases. Their symptoms are different, the causes are different. So how do you diagnose something like that? But if we look at the microbiome, we can find signatures that can pinpoint changes in neurotransmitters. Similarly, if we talk about heart disease, just by looking at the gut microbiome, it is very possible to predict that this person is going to have heart disease in so many years. It can be done much before a person actually has heart disease. So these are some of the things that can happen in diagnostics, comparing the composition with pre-existing databases to see what patterns are there in normal individuals versus what patterns are there in diseased individuals, and then using that as a diagnostic tool. If we look at microbiome-based therapies, now we talked about probiotics. because the probiotics that we have right now are not very regulated. There are many probiotics on Amazon which will tell you that, oh, this has some billion CFUs or colony forming units. But if you actually go and look at those, you don't know whether that's the real count. The other thing is that you don't know whether it is going to survive the gastric acid. Is it going to reach your intestine to colonize there? And even if it reaches, the environment is still the same. What are we doing to change the environment? So probiotics are still being developed. They are not there yet where we can say that probiotics are amazing, they're doing something. Yes, there are some very good brands, but not all. Then there's something called prebiotics. Now, these are the foods for the probiotic strains or the microorganisms. These foods, majority of it is fiber, are also very, very important. So identifying them, making preparations of prebiotics, and making a combination of these can be used for treating disorders. That will be something that will happen in the future. There's a third term called postbiotics. Now, when I talked about idli and dhokla as an example that many people give for fermented foods, they are very healthy because they have postbiotics. They are fermented, and the metabolites that these microbes make are called postbiotics. The food themselves are called prebiotics. The microbes are called probiotics. And the metabolites that these microbes make in these foods are postbiotics. So even postbiotics will be used later on when they are identified, when enough research is done on them to treat many diseases. So these are some ways in which personalized medicine is moving. It is moving in that direction. You have already heard about fecal microbiome transplant or fecal microbiota transplant, FMT. If we talk about nutrition, now everybody we know will say that, oh, I'm eating a very healthy diet. Where are you getting these resources from? Is it from YouTube videos? Is it from influencers? What is your thought on healthy or nutritious? There are so many different misconceptions about nutrition. Precision nutrition as to what you need tailored for your unique microbiome composition is going to be something that is catching up very, very fast. If we think of the very famous nutritionist, like the celebrity nutritionist Ryan Fernando, he is also doing precision nutrition based on the microbiome composition. So it is something that is just beginning in India. And think about where all the students of microbiology, all the students of nutrition, all the students of medicine are. There is no knowledge about the microbiome. There is no education formally about the microbiome. So how can we be in these fields of precision nutrition, microbiome-based therapies, diagnostics, or any of those without this knowledge? So this is something that is again catching up. It is very important in personalized medicine. So if we really think of this, the sad state of affairs is many students in microbiology will say that, oh, I did not get admission in medicine, that's why I took microbiology. That is something that is very, very common. But do you know that microbiology is the new medicine? Instead of studying medicine, you can be into personalized medicine by studying this in microbiology. Whoever knows about the human microbiome can do extremely well in this field of personalized medicine. Who do you think is going to advise the doctors on what they need to do for chronic diseases? We are seeing the same examples. Now, I have a PhD in genetics. Doctors come to us for advice about the microbiome because they do not know. They do not know how to treat these chronic diseases. So it is the integration of the microbiome analysis in clinical practices. This is very, very promising for personalized treatment plans, for even preventive strategies. Think about how many preventive strategies we need right now. All of these are based on the unique microbiome profile. It is as unique as our fingerprint. So if we think of what our microbiome looks like, everybody's microbiome is unique. Like a mother would say that, oh, mera beta or beti lakhon mein ek hai. Our microbiome is also just like that. It is very, very unique. If we think of any of the microbial therapies like fecal microbiome transplant, the very important thing is in Australia last year, in Australia and the United States, fecal microbiome transplant was approved as the official mode of treatment for Clostridium difficile infection. If you are familiar with Clostridium difficile, you will know that it is a very resistant infection. It is very antibiotic resistant. It is impossible to treat with antibiotics in many people. It is a very painful condition, and those people want relief from this. So fecal microbiome transplant is the only thing that helps us. Just transplanting healthy feces from a normal individual helps them cure that disease. It is that promising. So if you're studying microbiology, it is actually the new medicine, because here we can target specific pathogens using precision microbiome changes. There are many, many different approaches. The approaches that we know of are still, in the making. If we think about how we can combat antibiotic resistance, what can we use for antibiotic resistant bacteria? What are the things that you would think of? Can you use bacteriophages? Viruses that can infect bacteria? Can you do that? So the study of bacteriophages has opened very different avenues for personalized medicine, especially for antibacterial therapy. Think about all of the things that you can do in medicine by looking at this. If we think of mental health, think of how many people have mental health issues right now. If I had to give a number, it is most of us, especially after the pandemic. Most of us have some mental health issues, some emotional health issues. It is just that we think it's a taboo subject and we do not want to admit. If we understand what the gut brain axis is, if we understand how the microbiome is changing it, like the example of toxoplasma that I gave, this has implications on treating neurological diseases, psychiatric conditions. There's so much that is not known about conditions like schizophrenia, about Alzheimer's, about Parkinson's. There's so much research that still needs to be done. Then there are microbiome-based therapies being explored for allergies. Allergies can also be caused because of poor immune system training or an overreactive immune system. Then there are autoimmune diseases. We already know that autoimmune diseases have a very, people with these have a very different microbiome. Many forms of cancers, 90% of our majority of the cancers. If we know how to modulate the microbiome, think about the kind of research that can provide the treatment methods for this. So if we think about the microbiome therapeutics, there are either subtractive therapies, which include using bacteriocins, bacteriophages to remove bacterial infections. There's modulatory therapy where microbial DNA can be isolated. Bioactive compounds can be made by using these microbial genes. These can be introduced in the diet, or there can be lifestyle modifications. There can be prebiotics that are made using these bioactive compounds. There can be an additive therapy where it can be a fecal microbiome transplant, where it is just added to the donor's microbiome. It can be engineered or naive probiotics. So these are just a very few examples of this nascent field of the microbiome. If you take a look at the kind of research that has been happening in the past 6 to 7 years, there are thousands of very interesting publications in this field. If we look at the global story of what is happening globally in the personalized medicine market that involves the microbiome, let us look at this. Personalized nutrition and wellness. This is the share. The entire global market size in 2022 was $538 or $539 billion. This is the global market size, and it is expected to grow 7.2% till 2030. If we look at the diagnostics, just look at the percentage of diagnostics of medical care. These are the diagnostics. This is the personalized medical care. And this is the medicine therapeutics. This is expected to grow a lot more. It is already there. We are not aware of this. If we look at the personalized medicine story in the United States, again, this is 177 billion in 2022, and it is increasing. If we look at 2030, it is going to increase a lot more. What is happening in India? India is the emerging market We are just a market for them. Whatever research is happening here, India is a market. Do we really want to be a market, or do we want to be the leading providers of this personalized medicine? Are we ready to lead in this? So this is the largest market, and this is the fastest growing market. India is one of the countries in the fastest growing market. So just think about where we want to be. Should we be in the lead, or should we be just a fast growing market in this field? If we look at the human microbiome market again, the human microbiome project it was initiated in the United States, and also done, a lot of it was done in the by the European Union. The Indian microbiome project was initiated, but there weren't enough people to actually carry it forward. So this is what we have heard. This is again projected to grow from 1.7 billion. It is supposed to reach 1.7 billion by 2029. Again, the microbiome therapeutics market. The market size is USD $112 million. So microbiome therapeutics that is projected by 2033 is nearly 10 times. It's more than 10 times of what it is right now in the next 10 years. So this is where we are right now. This is the human microbiome market in India. This is a snapshot. So these are just some numbers. If we think of where we want to be in terms of providing the service or taking the service, that is something that we need to think about. These are some numbers about the FMT data that is provided. So this is the global fecal microbiome transplant market. So if we look at these numbers, the market size in 2021 was 1.19 billion. In 2029, it is supposed to reach 1.75 billion. The segments that are covered so far are Clostridium difficile infection, Parkinson's, obesity, diabetes, autism, other diseases also. So this is just what has been happening globally, and we are an emerging market. Should we remain that way? Talking about FMT, I already mentioned that US FDA has given its approval for this for C. difficile infection. Australia has given this approval already. So doctors are doing it. There's a lot of research that you can do. You can be into therapeutics, in actual treatment, in nutrition and wellness, and you can start your own company. You can be an entrepreneur. So we at Arna Gen Next are doing all of these. We are into research. We are developing therapeutics. We are in nutrition and wellness. We have our own company. We are helping doctors treat patients. We are doing all of these just by knowing, just by studying about the microbiome. So I mentioned the background of my business partners. My business partner, who is from IT, normally gives this talk. She's traveling right now. That's why I am giving this talk. But imagine an engineer giving you this talk. You are studying microbiology, and an engineer is going to tell you what you can do in the field of the microbiome. So if we think of the allied growth, where is the growth in this field? It's in products, manufacturing technologies. It's in sequencing methods, in different testing methods. The testing methods can be developed, different, faster, more efficient sequencing methods can be developed for the microbiome, because currently it is expensive. There are treatment options that can be developed like FMT, live biotherapeutics, research, publications, and patents in this field. So these are some of the things. I'm sure there's a lot more. If you think of what the doctors are going to look for in terms of advice, it is the microbiologist that they are going to come to. Do you have the right kind of expertise to guide them? Do you know about the microbiome to guide any of these doctors? If we look at the World Economic Forum, in 2023, the top 10 emerging technologies of 2023 are listed here. Number 4 on this list is designer phages, bacteriophages that are designed to modulate either antibiotic resistant bacteria or to modulate the gut microbiome itself. It is a very hot field. And who can do this work? Those who are studying microbiology right now. These designer phages allow engineering of the microbiome. They allow changing the microbiome, because as I said, 95% of our microbiome is bacteria. They have a great potential for treating microbiome-associated diseases that affect kidneys, that blood clotting functions, and many other types of diseases. They could also be hyper-targeted to specifically neutralize or kill specific bacteria. That's what phages do. So if you think about what are the kinds of job roles, what are the industries that you can be in, if you look at any career option in the field of the microbiome, it can be microbiome specialist in research institutions, in universities, biotech companies, healthcare organizations. So this is like a research specialist, clinical microbiome analyst who works in a clinical setting, collaborates with healthcare professionals for analysis of microbiome samples. It can be for diagnosis of diseases, monitoring treatment options, developing personalized therapies based on the microbiome data. It can be in bioinformatics if you want to learn bioinformatics. There's so much that can be done. The kind of data that we get from even a single sample is just amazing. Thinking about the trillions of microorganisms in our body. So this is going to help in data analysis and microbiome research. Expertise in bioinformatics is a highly sought after skill set because very large data sets are generated from microbiome sequencing. There's product development scientist because there will be many products, including probiotics, prebiotics, postbiotics, and many more microbiome-based products, microbiome-based foods, even fermented foods. So the design of experiments to evaluate product efficacy, safety, the mode of action, regulatory affairs specialist as to how these microbiome therapies are going to work, how these will be regulated. This is another thing that is, again, very hot, very required for regulatory landscapes, for getting the necessary approvals, for clinical trials, for product development. There's entrepreneurs, there's startup founders. You can have your own biotech companies. You can have your own fermented food companies. You can have your probiotic companies. There are many probiotics already in the market. There is skin probiotics. There are oral probiotics. There are gut probiotics. So those are some of the things that you can do. Science communicator or writer. People who have a very strong communication skill can become microbiome specialist writing. They can do that kind of writing, write articles, blogs, educate the people about the importance of the microbiome. Change how your choices are, change the choices of the society that you live in. This is a list of some of the organizations that are working on the microbiome. This is just an example. So these are the research organizations that are already working on the microbiome. These are some diagnostic and therapeutic companies. It is interesting that some of these companies that use skin, that are listed to improve the skin microbiome, are actually taking bacteria from the soil. So you have to apply that on your skin to get what you would normally get from the soil. So that is something that is interesting. Now, we at ArnaGenNext improve microbiome readiness by doing outreach programs like this, by doing webinars, by conducting research, and we also offer courses. So one of our initial course is the human microbiome course that we are offering on our website. It's a completely digital course. It is a self-paced recorded course, which takes about 30 hours. And there are 15 hours of recorded videos. There are quizzes in between. Every 20 minutes, there's a practice quiz. There's a graded quiz after every hour. And there's a final quiz after the entire course. So in this course, you can learn about what the microbiome is, what are the types of microbiomes, what are the different microbiomes in our body, including the skin, oral, gut microbiome. We have focused on all of these in different modules. And then there is also the how do we figure out what the microbiome is? Sequencing methods, culture independent, culture dependent methods. Then there are other things like what are the diseases that are caused by dysbiosis, what can happen in the skin microbiome, what can go wrong in the oral microbiome, the gut microbiome, the vaginal microbiome. And then there are therapies, probiotics, and diagnostic methods. So this is what the course contents look like. It is designed in an NEP style where you would get 2 credits. And this is certified by the Microbiologist Society of India. It is also certified by our company. We also have research projects. We have global scientific advisors and mentors. This course can be taken by anybody who has a basic knowledge of microbiology. So we would advise students from second year onwards to take this course, second year, third year. If you're doing your master's, if you are doing your PhD, even if you are a faculty, you can definitely take this course on the human microbiome. So these are our social media handles. I would definitely recommend looking at our YouTube channel. We have a lot of content on the human microbiome, on what are the things we can do to improve our mental health, physical health, and very different aspects. We are doing a series on gut-brain axis. We have already posted 2 of those podcasts recently. Our Instagram is also Microbiome Superhero. There's no space in between. The Facebook handle is Microbiome Superhero. This is our website, microbiomesuperhero.com, where you would find the course on the human microbiome. So do let us know if you want to register for the course. There will be a discount code that will be provided for people who are registering for it. If you have any questions for this part, please feel free to ask.
I think first year students who are now going to second year,
Yes.
who can join this course?
Yes. If they've completed their first year, we even first year students can take it, but what they get out of that course will be, less compared to what they would if they have completed their first year, because they would know what the sequencing technologies are and what microorganisms are basically. So it can be taken by them. The price of this course is 1,500. If you go to the website, it would say 4,000, but there's a discount code that is provided for this. If you want to register, do go to our website. That I'm going to post it in the chat box. So this is the website, and this is the discount code. So if anybody has any questions for this part, please feel free to ask, or even the previous one. So this is a 2-credit course that you would get from your college. You would have to get it from, you would have to let them know. It is certified by the Microbiologist Society. Students have already taken it this year. They have received 2 credits for this course. Some colleges have felt that they should get 3 credits after this course. So it is really up to your college. I mean, some colleges thought it was extensive enough for providing 3 credits. And it can be done either as a workshop. It can be completed in 7 days, or you can take your own time and complete it in 3 months. So that is something that's completely up to the student. If you want to take it during the break, you should talk to your college about getting the credits, and you can start the course anytime. You can do it at your own pace. I'm just going to show how this looks like on the website. We have really amazing feedback from students who have taken our course. So I'm just going to share the screen. This is our website, microbiomesuperhero.com. And if you scroll down, there are many different things that we do. These are our services. There's courses. We even have a mobile app for children. It is called Microbiome Superhero, which is available on Play Store. So it is for developing healthy habits for gut health. We do research. We also have our wellness programs for teenagers, for young adults, for all kinds of even professionals, frequent flyers. We are developing our own products. doing outreach and webinars. This is our wellness program called Shatayushi 360 degrees to prevent chronic diseases, to even reverse many of them. And this is the course that I was talking about, the human microbiome course. This is something that you can click on and buy. So I've already provided the code. It is discount with capital D. This is the app, our Microbiome Superhero app, which is available on Play Store. And I would highly recommend our YouTube channel as well to listen to all of the podcasts. If you have not subscribed, please do it right away. So, are there any questions? I want to share. Yeah, this is our YouTube channel. It's called Microbiome Superhero. And here you would see that there are these podcasts. There are 17 different podcasts here. Yes, it's a very beneficial course. It will open a lot of doors in terms of career and even in terms of the choices, in terms of overall health, if students take this course. If the faculty can promote this course in the colleges and provide credits for it, it will be really amazing. So we will keep providing this information on the MBSI Telegram group. We will also be providing it to faculty and the coordinators of MBSI. If you have any more questions, do let us know.
If there are no more questions, can we conclude, Dr. Rashmi?
Yes, we can conclude. If there are no more questions, you can get in touch with us on the website or on our MBSI group, or I'll share the email, the same email that provided the link, contact@microbiomesuperhero.com.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rashmi, for such a brilliant talk, I would say. In fact, I also learned so much in this talk. And there were so many aspects, so many dimensions which we were not paying attention to, apart from, of course, career opportunities, but even for a common man, this knowledge is very, very important.
Yes.
And I'm sure if students take up this course, this will add a lot of value to their degree and to their career prospects in the future. Thank you once again. We will be in touch. And
Yes.
I hope many students join the course. And I believe it is open for faculty. So
Yes,
that
it is
will
open.
also.
It is open
Yes.
for everyone. So we are going to share the feedback form for this session. And we will also share the joining details for the course, the discount code, and all of the information from the same email that we sent the joining link to. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Thank you for arranging this. See you all.
Thank you
Have
so
a
much.
wonderful
The
evening.
pleasure is ours. We gained a lot. It's
Thank
really
you.
a
Thank you
very
so much.
beneficial talk. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining this webinar. I thank all the faculty members as well as the students who have joined this webinar. Thank you once again, all of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.